Yo, so the new Wuthering Heights film. This is from Emerald Fennell. Yeah, I believe that's how you say her name, right? Um, she writes and directs. She also produces the film along with Rosie Goodwin, Josie McNamara, Margot Robbie. It's executive produced by Anthony Titanegro, Andrew Larry, Sarah Desmond, Pete Chippapetta, and Tom Ackley. It is associate produced by Andy Madden. And we have got Gisela Everett on post production. Anthony Willis handles the score, and I believe Charlie XCX, I mean, that's it, right? She wrote songs for the film. Linus Sandgren took care of cinematography. Victoria Boydell edits the piece, with Carmel Cochran handling all the casting. All right, production design is Susie Davis. Art direction, we have Caroline Barkley, Lydia Fry, Nena Lucia, and Elena Real Davis. Charlotte Durix handles set decoration. Costume design, we have Jacqueline Duran. Hair and makeup, we got Adrian Dimas, Elise Eggleston, Nana Fisher, Joe Flowers, Tabitha Gardiner, Lolly Goodship, Ashley Grom, Caroline Groves, Samuel James, Sarah Kramer, Chris Lines, Ray Marston, Sophia Mascarias, Waldo Mason, Sienna Miller, Cheryl Mitchell, Laura Morse, Lorna Smith, Tristan Versailles, Kate Warwick Oliver, and Sophie White. Then, people, on stunts, we have Dave Boyle, Nilly Settin, Tony Christian, Byron Colbert, Jordan Combs, Nicholas Danes, Oliver Goff, Clayton Grover, Nim Hogan, Roman Kearns, Joe McLaren, Nikita Mitchell, Jazz Scudell, Nicholas Scudell, Anthony Scrimshire, Dan Thomas, Daryl Thornton, and Ken Walters. So, our cast. We have got Margot Robbie as Catherine Earnshaw. A younger Catherine is played by Charlotte Mellington. Then there is Nellie Dean, right? Her lady in waiting kind of thing. Nellie is played by Hong Chow. A younger version of Nellie is played by Vi Nugent. We have got Mr. Earnshaw, Catherine's father, played by Martin Clunes. Right? Then there is Heathcliff, right? The young boy that Mr. Earnshaw adopts. He is played by Jacob Elordi. Younger Heathcliff is played by Owen Cooper. We have got Edgar Linton, played by Shazid Latif. In this version, it's his ward, Isabella, right? It's played by Alison Oliver. There is Joseph, a slave of the Earnshaws, played by Ewan Mitchell, and another slave, Zilia, played by Amy Morgan. There's Mrs. Burton, played by Jessica Knappett. Jane, played by Millie Kent. Sister Mercy, played by Vicky Pepperdine. And Heathcliff's dad, who we see kind of briefly at the start, played by Paul Reese. So that's our main cast, right? Now, the film, what's it about? A passionate and tumultuous love story set against the backdrop of the Yorkshire moors, exploring the intense and destructive relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine Earnshaw. So yeah, that's the film, people. So, the original, right? The original Wuthering Heights came out in 1847. 1847, right? November. Man, that's a long ass time, Emily Brontë, of course, wrote the story, and it's been adapted so many times. Now, with this, right? So when it was announced, right, everyone, I think, thought it was going to be this, traditional adaptation. I then heard Emerald say it is more an adaptation of the memory she had of reading the book. So not necessarily, verbatim, but what the memory of reading the book brought up within her. Which, that's a different way of doing it, you know what I mean? It changes things for sure. But, there's been so many films and mini-series and all of this kind of jazz, right? Interpretations. So, whatever at this point when it comes to the source material, you know what I mean? Now, I will say this, right? What I thought was really good, I thought was very good, were the young actors, right? I thought they were exceptional, we had, who is it? Charlotte Mellington as the young Catherine, right? We've got Owen Cooper as the young Heathcliff, and especially Vi Nugent as the young Nellie. I thought they were extremely good. They really did a fantastic job in those roles. And for me, that was the strength of the film, right? That is when we really saw, I thought, actual emotion, right? When we jump to everyone being adults, Nellie doesn't really have a lot to do. She's there, she's kind of pivotal, but, she's in the background essentially. So it's more Heathcliff and Charlotte, and Robbie and Elordi. Yeah, they've been in so many things, right? They act, we know they can act. In this, everything feels a bit flat. I don't know. That's what I got from this. I wasn't set on fire by this film. And just, everyone's down for the BDSM, it would seem. Right? Which is just okay. You know what I mean? I kind of feel putting a actual horse's bit in someone's mouth and pulling, you're probably breaking teeth, right? I don't think there's any way around not fucking the teeth up. Yo, what are we doing? It's all a little bit, it all gets a little bit odd. Right? I kind of think there's a bit when, Catherine is spying on a couple of the house slaves having sex, and at this point you're kind of I imagine she's probably seen people, because dad's an alcoholic, right? He's bringing back, you know, all manner of wenches he finds or pays for. Right? He's harassed the servants. So I imagine she's probably walked in on him doing things or seen him in the kitchen, you know, all, you know what I mean? Just anywhere in the house. So that's kind of like, it doesn't ring true, right? I don't think you buy it. And yeah, and then what Heathcliff does is again a little odd, right? Now, I've got to say, people. Well, firstly, before I do, I think this suffers from the same thing as Hamnet. You know, for me anyway, right? Everything is a bit too shiny. You know, nothing seems to age. Everyone's got perfect teeth, right? Even though, motherfuckers didn't own toothbrushes, you know what I mean? Like, they got perfect teeth. There was no Colgate, Arm& Hammer, none of that business, right? And back in those days, people didn't shower every single day, right? There was people that were going, oh, showering's bad for you, right? Like, because, people were dying of influenza and flu and just all manner of things. So, getting wet, like, that was kind of frowned upon a lot of the times, you know? So, if you're not showering every day, there's going to be some musty ass smells all over the spot, which then leads us to the bit with the hand, right? When Heathcliff gets that hand and starts sucking those fingers, right? In reality, the words Heathcliff would probably be saying is, yo, Catherine, have you been playing around in the latrine again? Right? Because, he ain't smelling no roses. You know what I mean? He definitely ain't smelling none of that. So, I know what we're trying to say, right? Because anyone giving oral back in those times, they should get a medal, right? Because, boy, there was some pungent shit going down, right? People were not cleanly, right? Boy, you were a true champ. Like, you don't cheat on someone who's prepared to do that shit, right? You cherish that motherfucker. You know what I mean? But yeah, there was just a lot of odd things going down in the film, right? You didn't even buy any sort of love between Elordi and Robbie, right? I just don't think they conveyed those emotions, you know? I thought that, what's her name? Alison Oliver did a good job with Isabella. Like, the version of Isabella we get in this adaptation, right? Because she did play this weird, infatuated character, right? Who was very submissive. She carried that off very well, right? And I think that's the most emotion that we were kind of getting, right? Like, you understand what sepsis is, right? Sepsis, it's not a slow burn disease, right? You will notice if someone's got sepsis pretty quickly, right? It's not something of just like, oh, I never knew. Whew, how did that get part? No. Right, you might mistake the symptoms for something else, but you're not really going to mistake sepsis. You know what I mean? You're not missing that. So that whole part of it was like, what are we doing? There would be some drastic changes, right? Drastic changes, and there was not, right? Which kind of gives us, and speaks to the superficial nature of the film, right? Where aesthetically, yes, they made it look nice and everything like that, but it just seems to lack substance and depth, right? It doesn't have the character that a lot of these great period adaptations have, right? It's the character. The DNA of the time feels embedded in these things. And I think that's what people gravitate to. With this, we're kind of devoid of all of that. We do not have it, right? They've made it kind of look like they're hanging and everything like that, but really, it's just a little too shiny, right? And I think that's the kind of issue that seemed for me to be with Hamnet. So I would say, if anyone really enjoyed Hamnet, right? If that was like, oh man, they hit all the good points, right? They brought this to life. I bought it. I loved it. Then I think those people are going to enjoy Wuthering Heights, So I think, yeah, though these two films kind of go hand in hand. They are very much like siblings, I would say, But, yeah, it's a shame, right? I think it's a shame that it doesn't really have that emotional impact, right? There's a lot of sexual innuendo, but it all falls a little flat, right? I didn't think this film isn't titillating. It's not racy. It's not sexy. It just feels a little played out, Just feels a little played out. So, yeah. Wuthering Heights, people. But as I said, look, if you liked Hamnet, you'll like this. If you want a different take, right? If you want this BDSM version, then yeah, maybe EmeraldFennell's Wuthering Heights is for you. But when you think about submissive relationships, BDSM, all of that kind of thing, secretary is the template, right, for something that really did seem to carry all of that off very well and still make you buy into this weird love between the two. And I think, with Wuthering Heights, Emerald wasn't able to capture that. She wasn't able to secretary this material. And I think that's what they were going for. But unfortunately, it doesn't hit like that, Doesn't hit like that. Maybe it works for you, right? If it does, people let me know. But yeah, these are just my thoughts on Wuthering Heights. Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, definitely curious to see how the masses feel.